Alright, what's going on, guys? John here, John's Fishing Channel. I've got the boat loaded up, the truck is ready, everything's good to go. I'm just checking my trailer lights here, make sure both of them are working before I take off. Today I'm going to be fishing a little lake in northern Wisconsin near the Ashland County border called Day Lake. It's full of largemouth bass and a lot of small muskies. There are big muskies in there, but if you do catch a muskie, it tends to be, 25, 30 inches, which is a good sized fish. But as muskie go, that's a medium sized muskie. But heck, catching muskies is a blast, so it doesn't bother me. But hop in the truck and let's get out of here. Listen to a little blues traveler. Got some wild turkeys right here in the woods. I don't think you guys will be able to see them, but about 6 of them are walking through the woods right back there. If you watch this video really closely, you'll be able to see them moving back there, but that's kind of neat. It's always cool to, come fishing in the North Woods and see all the wildlife that you don't normally get to see when you live in the city in California. So, one way, I am at Day Lake. I'm just pulling the boat around here. And I'll tell you a little bit about where I'm fishing. Day Lake is a dammed up lake. It's called the Day Lake flowage technically, but the way that it works is they built a dam on one end of the Chippewa River and basically flooded an entire area, they flooded an entire wetlands area to create a lake like this. It's a nice little lake. Hopefully we can go out there and catch a few fish. I think they'll be biting today. I'm really excited to get out there and get back into it, back home, fishing where I know how to fish. And yeah, I'm gonna pop the boat in here, park the truck. I'm gonna read the sign over there for any rules or regulations that there might be, and then we'll be ready to go. It'll be pretty awesome. I'm gonna load up the boat before I put it in the water here and unhook the strap, put in the plug, make sure all the motors are hooked up, and we'll be good to go. All right, guys, so I made it out to the lake. The wind is kind of going up and down, so a little breezy. It's changing on me. It's kind of blowing me around, but I'm out on Day Lake. It's a nice little lake. I'm actually the only person out here right now, which is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna start with the rubber worm here, and just a little weighted jig. The fish up here aren't really hook sensitive, so they don't actually even notice this giant piece of metal hook hanging out of the bait. In places like California, they do, so you have to use really small hooks. But hopefully we can get them and catch them with this. I might switch to a topwater frog, a couple spinner baits. It's pretty weedy in this lake, so I have to really go with stuff that's not going to hook the weeds a lot. No treble hooks, no really heavy underwater lures, stuff like that. So hopefully I can catch a couple fish out here. It's a beautiful day in northern Wisconsin. Alright, guys, so right now I'm fishing a little spot kind of back in a weeded bay here. I've seen 3 or 4 fish jump. I was fishing a white frog, it wasn't working, so I switched over to a black frog, see if maybe the color change might help a little bit. I've been fishing it fast, I've been fishing it slow. I'm not really sure what they're into right now. Alright, guys, so I got my first fish. It was really funny because I casted into those weeds over there and it was really windy, and I kind of turned up the motor and I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna get out of here. And then I was like, oh crap, I'm stuck on another weed, and it's actually a fish, so that was really awesome. Alright, guys, so here's the first largemouth I've ever caught on Day Lake in northern Wisconsin. Took it on a rubber worm, took it right off the weed bed, right off there. He was about 20, 30, 25 feet offshore, I would say, right on the edge of the weed line. And it's just a nice fish, about 3.5 pounds. And we'll let him go back and tell all his friends how he was just featured on John's Fishing Channel. Day Lake, day 2. You guys are gonna see a lot of me over the next few weeks fishing with a rubber worm and a weighted jig using the shaky minnow style here. And last night it was actually relatively warm compared to the last week. It was about 15 degrees warmer than it was, come on out of the weeds, warmer. So that has kind of pushed the fish up into a little bit shallower water. They're in about 5 feet of water right now. I'm out on Day Lake, just kind of working the shore here by the dam. Just casting right up into the weeds, just slowly jigging my worm back, and you never know. My brother Tom actually caught a fairly large muskie on one of these rubber worms. It was about 22 pounds maybe. Yeah, just under 30 inches, 30, over 30, I don't remember. But it was a phenomenal fish to catch on a rubber worm. But that doesn't happen very often because they have such big teeth that they tend to snap your line right off. So hopefully we can get some fish here. There's a few other boats out on the lake today, so what I've decided to do is, it's not very windy, as you can see. There's really no wind right now. I made a fishing video the other day. It was extremely windy, and I didn't realize it. It was the first time I've been out in the wind, and my camera has one of the worst microphones I've ever heard record in the wind. So I do have wireless mics for really windy days, but I don't think it's going to be windy enough today to need those. So what I'm doing is I'm fishing the wind blowing side of the lake right now, because there really is no wind. It's really it's not very windy out right now. So what that means is a lot of the bait fish and bugs and everything is just kind of naturally going to float towards this side of the lake and get hung up. And a lot of times, the fish don't really want to be in that really high, choppy, windy water. So days like today, they just kind of cruise around. I'm going to try a couple spots today. Hopefully we get a couple decent fish in the boat. And, we'll kind of go from there and hoping to catch a big muskie. But alright guys, so I switched it up to a little spinner bait. It's yellow. It's a double blade. I know all of these have like technical terms for the type of blade this is, but I'm not exactly really ultra familiar with spinner baits and their styles. I do know a lot about their technique in fishing them, but one thing that's nice about spinner baits is you tend to catch a little bit more bigger fish than you normally would with like the rubber worm. Last couple of videos you guys saw me fishing, we're pulling out 3/4 of a pound bass. With spinner baits, they're usually above 2 pounds because they have to chase it down and eat such a big bait. It really does take a lot of energy, and the little fish sometimes just aren't up for that. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll catch like a 6-inch bass that's like 3 months, 4 months old on a pretty big lure, and you'll pull him up to the boat and he'll just look at you square in the eye like, yeah, I did it. What, you want some of that? I'm gonna be a badass someday. But so I'm working the spinnerbait. I'm throwing it up to the weeds. You can throw spinnerbaits really far, so I backed off the shore quite a ways. Rubber worms are really light. They're hard to cast long distances with these type of rods. So what I've done is I've backed up to about 60, 80 feet off the shore. I'm throwing this right up against the weeds, and I'm just slowly working it back. Give it a little jerk every once in a while, every 10, 12 seconds. Kind of jerk it left, jerk it right. And that kind of just moves it around a little bit. This is an imitation, kind of like a wounded bait fish. I don't know why they think a wounded bait fish looks like this, but they do. And they kind of swim, and they'll jerk like they're in pain or they're hurt, or they're not feeling right. And a lot of times, fish, they want to go for the easiest meal in the lake, so they see that, and they'll wham, they'll hit it, they'll eat it, and then it'll be gone. But so I'm going to work this back to the boat around. I'm also going to throw a Rapala too, until I find something that I start catching them on. I'm going to probably switch up a lot of baits here in the next couple hours, and hopefully I can get something. One good thing about fishing with a spinner bait is that you can actually hook a muskie, which is cool, because a muskie will actually take the effort to eat something like this because it looks pretty tasty to them. I should be using a bait caster for a lure like this. Look at that, there we go. Oh, that was a muskie. Oh God, that was fucking awesome. Oh man. Threw it right up to the weeds, about 5 feet off the wides. Instant, just wham! And a muskie bat. It wasn't very big, it was about this big. Came clean out of the water, shook twice, threw the bait out, went back down. But that was, that was pretty cool. That's not something that happens all the time, but usually, sometimes, if I cast back to the same area where that fish was, he might come right back. Muskies are very aggressive. And especially the littler ones, they're not as big. They don't need to conserve as much energy and sit in the sun for 4 or 5 hours at a time. They can kind of cruise around and get by on a smaller amount of energy than the big fish. But that was cool. Man, that is exciting stuff. So I'm gonna go back through and just fish this shore one more time, and I'll try to get the camera on if I do hook a fish. But last time I had a big fish on and I turned the camera on, I lost it. So my main goal in hooking big fish this time is getting them into the boat and then showing it to you guys so we can actually see it and not messing it up. So I'm gonna circle back around and fish this again. I don't know if I showed you guys the dock when I came in last the last day I was here, but the dock, there was nothing by the dock. You know, I actually pulled into the other side of the dock with my boat strapped up. This is a floating bog. It has broken off from somewhere out there and floated in right into the dock there. That's kind of funny. I could literally hook a rope up to that and tow it out there, but I don't work for the state, so I'm not going to do that. But that's just kind of interesting, those floating bogs like that. So I've had to bring the boat in on this side because I'm not going to be able to get over there and then put my trailer over here and get back out. It's kind of funny.